This story dates back to around 1,570 years ago when several barbarian tribes attacked the Roman Empire. The barbarians and the Huns raided many cities of the Roman Empire, causing widespread destruction. People living there wanted to escape with their lives, but the Adriatic Sea blocked one side and the Tyrrhenian Sea blocked the other side. They had only one option left: to flee to nearby islands in the sea. After reaching these islands, they were safe from the attacks, but these islands were located on shallow lakes, and the soil was so soft that nothing could stand on it. Despite all the difficulties, these people not only settled here, but also began to show engineering feats by building buildings, canals, and even bridges. There was no clean drinking water, but still, the Venetians turned it into the most powerful city. But how was all of this even possible? How could such a huge city be built on these tiny islands that were almost impossible to stand on, especially almost 1,000 years ago? Let's dive into that now. Welcome back at Global Facts, viewers. The people who initially came to these islands had no place to settle. The soft, clay-like land caused everything placed on it to sink. Many advised returning to the mainland, but doing so meant certain death due to the barbarians and Huns. These nomadic tribes from northern Europe had taken advantage of the Roman Empire's weakness and attacked at that time. The situation was so dire that living on these soft islands became their only option. Some of the working classes lived there. At that time, the working class became their only option. 5 kilometers away from the coast, there were over 150 small marshy islands, all in a similar condition. During this time, one of the refugees, as he was sinking into the ground, used his boat's oar to anchor himself into the land. To his surprise, the oar went deep into the ground and became solid after several feet. This gave them the idea that would later lay the foundation of Venice. Just a few kilometers away in what is now Croatia, tree trunks were brought from the forests and hammered into these marshy islands. As they climbed up the mountain, Rakovia's father had to work very hard to anchor himself into the land. So this became this massive provincial field where all of these kings and queens, they lived. After going about 5 meters deep, these tree trunks would grip into the firm soil, creating a stable platform. Once the tree trunks were hammered in, their upper parts were cut off and leveled, and wooden planks were laid over them to evenly distribute the weight across the piles. Special limestone blocks were used to raise the foundation above the water level. The combination of stone on top and wooden piles below created a solid foundation. The wood, now submerged in water, expanded and became tightly interlocked with no air gaps between them, which is why the piles from 1,000 years ago still hold the city today. Once the foundation was laid, the construction of buildings began. Initially, the Venetians built wooden houses, but due to frequent fires caused by cooking, they eventually started using bricks. To keep the buildings light, the houses were no larger than 3 stories. A special limestone-based mortar was used between bricks to not only provide strength, but also flexibility. The floors and internal walls were made of wooden planks, which were reinforced with iron rods. This idea became very popular in Venice, and soon the islands began to be filled with houses built this way. Normally, cities spread outwards, but Venice started expanding inward. In the beginning, traveling from one island to another was only possible by boat. But as the population grew, the islands began to come closer, and it became possible to cross from one island to another on horseback, even with the water levels being lower. With the city growing, the most pressing need was to connect the islands with each other. For the first 500 years, the islands were not connected, but as trade flourished, there was a need to connect the Rialto district to other parts of the city. The first wooden bridge to do this was called the Ponte Bridge. It was built using floats to create a crossing. However, because it was floating, it was unstable and often people would fall off. Later, a permanent wooden bridge was constructed, but it was destroyed by fire in 1310. Despite this, the Rialto Bridge stood for another 140 years, but in 1444, it finally collapsed under its weight. To replace it, the first stone bridge in Venice was planned. Over 1,200 wooden piles were driven into the canals, and a 1,000-ton stone arch bridge was built. This bridge was such a success that other stone bridges were soon constructed across Venice. Now, traveling from one island to another became much easier. Unlike normal cities, Venice had canals instead of roads. Goods could be transported easily from any part of the city, which was a huge advantage. In normal cities, pedestrians, horses, and carts often shared the same space, leading to congestion. But in Venice, pedestrian paths and canals were separate, making travel smooth. People could get on and off the boats at any point, making it incredibly convenient. Soon enough, Venice became one of the richest and most powerful cities in Europe, largely due to its strategic location. On a map, we see the Adriatic Sea with Venice at its edge, connecting directly to the Mediterranean Sea, which links Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Even today, the easiest and most affordable way to transport goods is by sea. Ships could easily travel from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, passing by Venice, which lay at a strategic point. The connection between the east and west of Europe through the Mediterranean Sea made Venice a hub for cargo ships, and Western Europe could easily send goods to Eastern Europe, where it was much cheaper. Thanks to these shipping routes, Venice became incredibly wealthy, and people from surrounding countries began settling there. The population grew rapidly, but with the increase in population, the demand for drinking water soared. Despite being surrounded by water, Venice's saltwater couldn't be used for drinking. Without natural springs or rivers, fresh water could not be stored. Initially, water was brought in from the mainland by boat, but as the population reached 1,700, the water shortage became critical. And this led the Venetian engineers to come up with a brilliant solution. They dug deep wells in parts of the islands that hadn't been developed. The walls of these wells were made waterproof using clay and lime. But that wasn't the end of their solution. They placed sand and stone around the wells and used tiles to seal them. This filtration process, based on nature's own filtering method, helped purify the rainwater that was collected. To make this system even more efficient, pipes were installed on the roofs of homes to funnel rainwater directly into the wells. Soon, Venice had over 600 wells supplying fresh water to its people. But Venice still faced another big challenge: sewage. Normally, cities have underground sewage lines that carry waste away, but Venice didn't have the land to lay such pipes. So waste was disposed of directly into the canals. People who lived far from a canal would throw their waste onto the paths, which often became smelly. In the 16th century, Venice built drain pipes in homes, which carried liquid waste into the canals. Solid waste, however, stayed in the drains until a high tide brought water to pull it away. The tides in Venice rise and fall twice a day, cleaning the canals and ensuring the city's waste was regularly flushed out. This unique sewage system has been functioning for over 1,000 years, keeping the canals clean and healthy. It is incredible to think that the engineering methods used over 1,000 years ago to create Venice are still working today. The foundation of buildings, the canals, the bridges, and even the sewage system are still operational. Venice continues to sink slowly, about 1 millimeter each year, which is a natural process. It remains the only city in the world without cars or motorbikes. Every year, Venice faces flooding, known as acqua alta, when the water level rises in the winter, often submerging walkways. Despite these challenges, around 6 million tourists visit Venice every year, although the local population is less than 500. We hope you enjoyed this video from Global Facts. Don't forget to like and share. See you in the next amazing video.